Dude, oh my God, dude.
Oh my! This can't be real.
I need to sit down.
This can't.
Tim, we need to take this to the grave. We cannot tell anybody. This changes literally this changes everything.
Nah, I know. We can never talk. We can never talk.
I might actually puke. Get back a little. I might puke. Stay back.
Oh my!
Arizona, a land of stunning contrast. From sun-scorched deserts to the great pine forest of the north. There's so much to do and so much to see. Whether it be a day out on the river or a trip to the Grand Canyon. But no place in Arizona draws more attention than Phoenix, known for its sports, punishing weather, and diverse community. But as day slowly becomes night, strange things tend to happen. From reports of Bigfoot, giant birds, skinwalkers, and the chupacabra, it seems Arizona and its prized city hide many mysteries. But none more mysterious than the Phoenix Lights. Welcome to the Frost Files podcast number 5, where today we're talking about something quite special, the Phoenix Lights.
That's right.
Well-
Yes, today is our special episode, our long-awaited special. Daniel came all the way out from California over here to meet me in Phoenix, Arizona for a weekend, and we figured we had to do a fitting episode for UFO month to close things out.
Yeah, we did a lot of our research together when I was over there. So this episode's actually being filmed after I've gotten back. And also, I know I promised cameras for this episode, but that setup just isn't available yet. We're working on getting our own webcams up and running, so that'll be coming soon. But let's jump into it.
Heck yeah. So this occurred back on March 13th, 1997. This event is known as the Lights over Phoenix or the Phoenix Lights phenomenon. Essentially, during that time, there were hundreds, thousands of reports of an odd V shape of lights silently hovering all the way, from the southernmost part of Nevada, all the way down over the city of Phoenix, which is about a 200-mile stretch over roughly a 2-hour time frame.
So that time frame started actually in Henderson, Nevada at 7:55 p.m., where multiple residents there and multiple, like in our other episode, is an understatement. A lot of people in Henderson, Nevada saw that, and that's not too far from Vegas. So yeah, people were seeing them. It was then reported in Paulden, Arizona at 8:15 p.m. Same description, perfectly described as they did in Henderson. From there, it was seen in Prescott Valley, Arizona at 8:30 to 8:35, and then it was later seen coming in over the main part of Phoenix through the Piestewa Mountains.
At the time, that mountain range, which is in northern Phoenix, it was known as Squaw Peak. The mountain was actually renamed after this event, not due to the event, but it was renamed after the event. So, in some of the sources out there, they refer to it as Squaw Peak, but it's the same mountain range as Piestewa Peak Mountains.
Yeah, exactly, and that was seen at 8:45.
Yeah, there were reports from different areas in Phoenix. You had people in Glendale, Arizona, which is an area of like the western part of Phoenix. People in the city of Phoenix itself reporting it. We're going to be including some of the different media that we've come across just to share that with you. Because as creative as we both are, everyone's a visual person, so you get to kind of see what we're talking about here in this episode.
Exactly. So yeah, it was seen around the Phoenix area at 10 p.m. So in different spots. This could also be. This isn't one of our theories quite yet, but just to add some context, this was after the main part of the event happened, so these could be fraudulent. I mean, most people had said it disappeared before 10 p.m. So it's up to you on what you believe on that. But 1 in 10 Arizonans ended up seeing the lights that night. It looked about a mile long, that many reported. They flew together, but loosely. They would kind of come back in and out of shape. And a lot of people just reported that it did not match any plane or jet flight tech, any of that.
Yeah, and so before we get into the theories, I think we should take a moment to, show a clip of actual. Well, I mean, of course, neither of us were there to confirm this is the real deal, but footage of the Phoenix lights that was allegedly recorded on that night, March 13th, 1997. So we're gonna go ahead and show that clip now.
Now we're looking at a light that's now appeared again. It's come out in a different place. Definitely far away, South Mountain. There's two of them. Here, we finally hit pay dirt. Now we've got two of them in the sky on South Mountain. South Mountain. Figure this one out. There's a double. There's a third one. Hey, Sue? All right, you tell me what it is. Oh, what do we got? Hey, Sue! Take a look at this.
Yeah, so as you can see, it is a string of lights that seems to be lightly floating over the city of Phoenix. Uh, you can, I don't know, it's weird. I mean, I don't really have anything to compare it to, but yeah, just a string of lights, floating together through the sky. Um, as you can see in the clip, there's no like airplane noises, there's no like engine sounds. It's silently floating. So now
Y-
we kind of provided some context for the event. Let's jump into some theories.
Yeah, so our first theory is the most obvious and the one that most people believe it to be, I would say, except for those people that just don't believe in anything. The first theory is actually that it was UFOs, the obvious, the one everybody came to this video to learn about. Um, and immediately it's hard to roll out. We're not going to give our opinions quite yet, and they're still developing as we discuss this. But the way this thing moves, um, it does seem quite strange. You'll see when we compare it to other things later in this video. Maybe it's not a UFO. Maybe you change your opinion based on the stuff you see later. But just in this original clip, you can kind of see it like split apart and come back together, which is just very strange movement. It does flicker a little bit, but you'll see multiple lights flicker on and off, and like at 1.1 will be on, at 1.5 will be on. It's just very strange, kind of unnatural. One light will last longer than all the others, and then all of them will come back on, and then all disappear. It's completely strange and bizarre, and like the like I mentioned before, that 1 mile long appearance. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is. It's just an estimate. Nobody like took out a tape measure like when they were there and like, holy shit. A 1 mile long tape measure, by the way, is insane. But yeah. So it's just a very large thing in the sky. So I can completely understand why a lot of people would immediately jump to UFO. Uh,
Hmm.
Not saying it isn't a UFO. Very well could be. This is quite an interesting case. How do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, it's like you said, it's the whole reason we're here. It's UFO. Um, I think with these reviews, I we'll kind of give our opinions once we get through all of them. Then also just to state these theories, they're not in any specific order. These are just the way we've come across them through doing our research, looking through different sources, and not all of these are widely theorized. Some of these are more niche, but I think before I give my opinion on whether it was a UFO or not. I'm going to jump into the second theory here. Uh, because of all of the media and the different, you know, speculation of what these lights could have been, they were always referenced to be in a near perfect V formation. Five lights in a perfect V formation, equal brightness, and they appear to be contained, not just open sources of light. Like if you were looking at like a street light or something, just an open light bulb, there are the light, kind of shines outward. These were described in the Phoenix Lights documentary back in '05 by someone who witnessed the lights, um, as being contained, as as like they were small lights, or if they were perfect oval shape almost. But one theory that kind of came to my mind that just it makes just enough sense is a B-2 stealth bomber, which if you've ever played Call of Duty, or if you're just familiar with the B-2 stealth bomber, it's a perfect V-shaped aircraft. Um, I'm no aviation expert. I don't know what the landing lights, or any sort of indication lights, or anything like that on the bottom of a B-2 stealth bomber would look like, but hey, maybe there's some pilot out there doing a test flight. Um, the aircraft was, introduced in early 1997, and there is an Air Force base in Arizona, in the Phoenix area. Hey, maybe they were doing some, pre-production testing, or training, due to it being a newly introduced aircraft, and you could explain, um, the lights flickering by being some form of indicator light that is intended to flicker, or you could explain the lights, going in and going out as, the plane, going through clouds, or changing, its orientation. I'm not a pilot. I don't know the proper terminology, but kind of tilting left and right to turn. Naturally, if you're looking at an object from one angle and it starts to tilt, you would see less of either the bottom or the top of that object as it's rotating in air. Um, so I don't think that's a very widely theorized, uh, you know theory or anything like that. It's just something that kind of came to me that I thought made sense if I were trying to look at this, from the point of view of, yeah, it's not a UFO, but who knows? It could be. I mean, the time frame kind of matches up, and it's not like I've ever seen one in person to be like, yeah, no, it was definitely not that, or it definitely was that. But we do have another clip of a B-2 bomber allegedly flying over someone at night. It's a very old clip. We found it here on YouTube. We'll go ahead and link it in the description along with the original poster of the video. But the poster essentially has a short clip of what he claims to be a B-2 flying over his house. Obviously, the lights in this clip are going to be a little bit different than the lights you saw in the original video of the Phoenix lights. But again, hey, I'm no expert in aviation, or aircraft, indicator lights or anything like that. Um, I also don't have a way to confirm that those lights, at some point, looked one way or might look a different way. But that's what we got for theory number two. So B-2 stealth bomber. Go ahead and check out this clip.
Okay, welcome back. So, yeah, as Cameron was saying, looking at that clip, it definitely, I mean, the shape is there. Like you can see the shape, uh, and obviously we don't know. I mean, nobody has the design formats for what U.S. government um, like jet like this could have been back then. I mean, in general, a lot of that stuff's top secret. We already know that, but so it very well could have had a different number of lights at a different period in time. I'm not sure if you already mentioned, but like this was when they were first rolling out. They were still in that testing phase. So, I mean, it's very possible this was a test flight and they changed some things too. Uh, yeah, so that's kind of how I feel about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, who knows? I definitely don't. Uh, like I said, neither of us could confirm or deny like that's what the lights on the bottom of a B2 stealth bomber would look like, or if they even have lights. I mean, I'm sure they probably do, but I don't know. And then even then, in the clip, um, the original poster, um, it's some dude standing outside his house. Pitch black night. It's a black plane. It could have been any other plane. It may not even be a B2 flying over his house, and it could have just been some other type of aircraft flying over. But the poster claims it was a B2 over his house at night. Um, and if you actually go check out that clip and go check out some of the comments, quite a few people seem to agree that uh, the lights and the way that they're oriented on the bottom of a B2 could very easily be mistaken for a UFO if it's at the right altitude, where it's not, making any noise or anything like that. Um, we won't, clip those comments here in the video because we would always encourage you to go check out these sources yourself. Go show some support on the original video. If I remember correctly, it's like 15 years old, so I don't think this guy is like actively posting anymore. But of course, go and check out the original content for yourself and see what you think. We're here just simply sharing that um, as it came up as a source in our podcast here, of course. Um, but yeah, let's go ahead and jump over to the next theory. What do we got, Dan?
So that's theory three, which is flares. So originally, the U.S. Air Force came out and said that they had dropped flares. It took them a little while to say that, and they didn't provide much context. So for a while, a lot of people just wrote it off as flares. Uh, so let's, before we jump any further, see a video of high altitude flares. Now that we're back, yeah, I don't want to give too much away about how I feel about it, but just watching that video, they move a little bit differently than you would have expected. Seeing those other videos, so is it possible that the Air Force just put something out there to, kind of get people to hush down? We'll look into that a little later.
Um, we'll cut this in before you say theory number four.
You want to touch in?
Yeah, just to touch on that as well. I think it's worth giving credit to the fact that uh, the aircraft in this clip that we showed is not a B2 bomber. That this is a separate theory from theory number two. Um, the aircraft in this video is an A-10 Warthog, different plane than we were discussing before. Where the focus here is just on the flares, and flares or aircraft flares are pretty universal in the way they look. Maybe not necessarily in how they're ejected from the aircraft, but how they function is pretty close to the same universally. So just wanted to throw that in there real quick
No,
before someone in the comments is like, That's not a B-2 bomber, stupid.
Exactly. And no, so he's got a point there. Again, we're going to touch on this stuff at the end. We're kind of changing up how we do true theory to just see how we like it, just get a little test of it. Uh, but yeah, no, flares move in a very specific way, and they kind of will obviously fall to the ground as they go. They don't usually float in a place for a long period of time. I'm not going to say more than that. It still very well could be flares. I mean, who knows what the government's testing? Flares with balloons on them probably pop, but there you go. So now we're going to jump into theory number 4, which is
Yeah, so theory number 4. And I feel like this is usually so theory number let me start over. Yeah, so theory number 4 is actually going to be weather balloons. Uh, weather balloons, they've kind of been at the foot of, multiple other suspected UFOs. Um, weather balloons, like flares, are kind of one of those real world objects that's very easy to, you know, mistake for something they're not. Um, could there or could there not be, a series of 5 weather balloons, you know, affixed to each other, with indicator lights on them for tracking purposes, or other, electronics, that happen to have lights on them, on a windy night, travel from Nevada to, central Arizona? Absolutely, sure. Who knows? Maybe. I wasn't there. I don't know how windy it was that night. I don't know if weather balloons, typically have that amount of longevity. But again, this is only a 2-hour time span, and then they disappeared. You know, um, so that's kind of all of the running theories. Um, we won't be showing a clip of a weather balloon in air just because I don't think there's been many instances where weather balloons are tied up in a perfect V formation, or a near
yeah.
perfect V formation moving at a high rate of speed. Um, those are kind of all of our running theories. Of course, everyone is free to kind of come up with their own theories and whatnot. And before we jump into our true theory segment, where we actually kind of rank these theories, in our own personal opinions, most to least plausible. Um, some other information we want to cover here. So at the time this happened, this was obviously a pretty big thing locally here in Phoenix. The governor at the time, um, I may butcher, pronunciation, but John Fife or Fife, I don't know, Symington the third, originally, had sort of a press conference in where he kind of made light of the situation. He had one of his, aides or employees come out dressed up like an alien and be like, "Yep, guys, this is what it is. This is what you were looking at. It's an alien." Um, just kind of making a funny of the big public, what the heck was that moment?
So yeah, later on, in an interview in 2014, he ended up admitting that well, I don't want to say admitting because it's just you taking him for his word, but he did say that he ended up seeing those lights that night, and that he wanted to play it off to keep people calm, and that he had been reaching out to the government, the Air Force, who he was a former member of. He used to be in the Air Force. So this is how he claims that he knows it wasn't a UFO. But he reached out to them for more information and has never heard back. It's also important to note that in 1997, shortly after these events, he was also taken in for fraud. Or sorry, it was fraud, right?
Yeah, he was convicted on like 7 counts of felony fraud, 6 months after the Phoenix
Yeah.
Lights situation. Um, and this isn't necessarily a theory, just because this is kind of doesn't really. It's not necessarily a theory on what the lights may have been, but who knows? Maybe he knew something and you know initially was like, hey guys, it was haha, it was aliens. Maybe he wasn't supposed to say that. Maybe he was supposed to say something else, and as a result, somebody, above him had him taken down. I don't know. Again, I don't know what this guy had going on in life. He may have done that. He may not have done that. But yeah, just 6 months after the Phoenix Lights in September of 1997, he was convicted on 7 felony counts of fraud, and stepped down as governor, obviously. But yeah, in that interview he did with Fox News in 2014, uh, he's quoted as when asked the question on March 13th, 1997, what did you see? He said, well, I saw a huge craft just come right over Squaw Peak. Well, it was breathtaking. And again, earlier we mentioned Squaw Peak,
Yep.
Piestewa Peak, same thing. It was renamed. Um, yeah, I mean, how do you kind of feel about that? Just talking about the former governor. Shortly after this happened, he gets convicted of fraud, and then spends 17 years out of the public sight, and then just comes back all of a sudden. It's like, yeah, I saw that shit.
Yeah, I mean, in general, it's just strange. Usually the governors, people like that, are always silent on situations like this. So for him to be so vocal, I mean, immediately after he was vocal, but it was a joke to him. Seemingly it was a joke, and he never said anybody made him do that. So I mean, it's strange because why would you believe something is an immediate danger or threat? I guess, or just in general, I don't know, a concern. And then kind of flip it up and play it as a joke and bring out aliens to this press conference. We might show an image or two right here. I mean, just looking at that, he's kind of taking this as a joke.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I think it's very
yeah,
clear that it's meant to be like lighthearted joke. Like your friend or significant other's like, oh, like I thought there was a ghost or something, and you're like, ooh, it's a ghost, or making light of a funny situation. But
exactly.
yeah, I don't think I can give him any more credibility than in another person just because he was governor. But I can give him credibility because what would he gain from being out of the public's eye for 17 years? I mean, and this is after, being the governor and being convicted of these felony charges. Personally, if that were me, I'd probably just want to live out the rest of my life in retirement, like just, kind of lay low. And it seems like that's kind of what he did. So it's like I can almost give him more credibility for, you know, seemingly of his own volition coming back and being like, hey, this is what I saw. Like, you
Well, you know what's
guys are
interesting?
right. What's that?
Yeah. So what's interesting is I don't even think he came to them; they came to him. Like he had made that original video and everything, and his name was kind of stamped on the Phoenix Lights. And then years later, he was probably done with it. I'm sure on a daily basis he would not talk about it. And that team that made the documentary that me and Cam was that the same team? No, 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 it was an interview team, right?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was. Well, a group of people for some video documentation came and interviewed him, and I honestly think from everything I've seen, it looks like they reached out to him. Like they reached out and came to him. Uh, so again, like that kind of just validates what you're saying that he really wasn't looking for fame or anything or trying to lie for a story, for clout. Uh,
Yeah, and it's not like him coming out and being like, yeah, it was aliens. I talked to the Air Force and they won't confirm or deny. I don't think he gains any any status or anything like that because it's this is something that happened back in '97. I mean, this is almost 30 years ago now. So I mean, 17 years later, but I mean, what does he gain from that? I
Ex-
think that's the main reason I can give him some credibility. And the fact that he comes out, and this is like seconds into the interview, he's like, yes, I saw a craft, a huge craft. Um, and that falls in line with the other information that's widely, spread out there, like um, from firsthand, accounts. I saw it. It was like a mile long. It was huge. It was silent. It was flying over the valley. It was moving around. Um, yeah, it's very interesting. Um, but segue from that, um, let's get into the true theory.
Yeah, so theory number one, the UFO. So, I mean, looking at this, it's definitely obvious now, looking at all the other things, that these lights were indeed pretty strange. Like, we still have to look into flares and weather balloons and compare them at the end, but and the stealth bomber. But it's hard to say that these lights weren't moving in a strange way. It's hard to say that because they were a mile seemingly long, that they could be anything else. Um, so I mean, the UFO argument has a lot of validity behind it. This guy, like again, like Cam said, can't give him too much. I guess yeah, validity is also the word. When it comes to UFOs and all that, and what he said, what his word is, but he was in the Air Force. He knows how planes work. It was floating in place, so that might be hard for, I mean, everything else on this list to do. Um, it's just the way it was, flickering on and off, strange. There's a lot of validity
Yeah.
to the claims of a UFO. How do you personally feel about that?
Um, well, I think if we take like a UFO at face value, it's an unidentified flying object. That's literally what this is.
Yeah,
So I mean, just that in general is hard to dispute. But I mean, if we're talking about
100%.
aliens, um, in the context of it being like an aliens, spaceship flying, over Phoenix, Arizona, one, why Phoenix? Um,
Yes.
and it's not like Phoenix is like some tiny little speck of dust. It's the fifth largest city in the country, and it's not only the capital city of Arizona, but the largest city in Arizona, population wise. But it's like, why Phoenix?
Do you have
Um,
any theories?
I mean, I don't know. Crazy enough stuff happens here. They're trying to figure out why people are crazy enough to live here in the summertime. I don't know.
If
Um,
visiting was hard enough. Yeah,
right, right. They were gonna land to, refill on gas, but realized it's hot as hell here, so they're like, nah, we'll just
went
push
somewhere
through.
else.
Yeah, we'll just push through to Jupiter. It's fine. I got like
But
56 light years to go before I empty.
yeah,
Um,
exactly. And also, why so slow?
yeah. It's definitely weird. I mean, if I had to rank this, like 1 to 10, true or not, or I guess on like a percent scale, one
Yeah,
percent to 100%, um,
true theory.
UFO, I gotta give that like 95%. I'm
Wow.
convinced it is some form. I know, crazy, right? Convinced it was
Yeah.
some form of craft, whether it be, man-made or, truly unidentifiable. It is what it is that. It literally is an unidentified flying object or objects in this case. But
So
plausibility of it being aliens, I gotta give that maybe like a 30%.
yeah, so yeah, again for me, like UFO. I mean, I 95% sounds right. Um, I mean, cause yeah, there's a 5% chance. Hey, we had this particular flare we developed, blah blah blah, that did this. Anybody in the comments, correct us if we're wrong or if you know any information. Unless you're not supposed to give out that information, then don't do it. We don't want caught up in that, and neither do you.
Right?
But
Bad for your health.
Yeah, please don't. I don't want to catch a case of bullet. Um, but yeah, no, I completely understand where he's coming from with that 95%. Um, with the aliens, I'm gonna go 44%, so just a little bit higher. Just from the belief that I mean it's strange. The lights are moving very odd. The low hover and how low was the ground is like it's a flex. Um, but maybe that was the point, and then they didn't realize we were just going to record it on these shitty 1997 cameras and then not know what it is. Um, so their military flex just didn't work.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's a lot of strange things that were involved with those particular 7 lights that could very well have been aliens. I mean, even 30. What did you say? 35%?
Uh,
30,
yeah, like 30% is where I'm at.
which is that's still a 3 out of 10. Like those are good odds. I know
Yeah,
on the percentage scale it might not look like it, but
I mean,
yeah,
when it comes to aliens, it's hit or miss, but I got to give it credibility, to where it is due, and then I got to also, um, what are the odds, at the same time. Yes, that's a really lazy way of explaining my reasoning, for picking the number I picked, but I don't know, it's just kind of how I'm feeling. I'm 30% certain, that it was aliens, 70% certain that it was not. Just because I feel like there's so many things it could have been, could have been
e-
some
exactly.
secret, NASA or Air Force, government test flight for some secret aircraft that we don't know about. And the pilot just forgot to turn off the lights.
Before we move on, I did want to mention the lights did seem like they were at an angle. I don't know if we touched on that earlier. I'm pretty sure we did. They seemed like they were at an angle, so that's partially what adds more in my opinion that it could have been UFOs, and that's why I have a slightly higher percentage. That and just the long distance between them would make it hard for it to be aircrafts unless there are a bunch of them flying together in synchronization, which is also possible. And perspectives and things happen, but just looking at the perspective, it makes me want to go a little higher on the percentage, but I'm going to stick at a 44.
Hmm.
Um,
You
and
know
then,
what? I'm changing my rating. I just
what are you
remembered
doing?
a very vital piece of information here. Um, if you guys didn't know, Tombstone is one of my favorite movies, and the actor Kurt Russell um,
Kurt,
actually was a witness to this. He was a pilot at the time. Um, saw the lights in the sky um, as he was coming into land and reported them to the air traffic control because he wasn't sure what they were. Um, so I got to change my rating. I'm gonna give it 35 because Kurt doesn't know what they are, so I don't know what they are either. I got to go with what Kurt says because I like the movie Tombstone, so
because I like the movie Tombstone.
it's a good movie, man.
Got a total of 37%, which is almost 4 in 10. So
Yeah,
it's a pretty, yeah, there's a good chance that it could have been UFOs. Well, was UFO, could have been aliens.
yeah,
I guess we could say 37% for the alien theory.
yeah.
So moving on, we're going to talk about how we feel about theory number 2.
Theory number two. As much as I'd like to, I don't think I can give very much credit to theory number two. Because again, this is just something that kind of made sense in my head initially. Like, hey, it's V-shaped lights, it was a V-shaped plane. How many V-shaped planes do I know to exist? One. Are there others? I don't know. I'm not a pilot. I'm not huge on like aviation or anything like that. Um, it just kind of came to me and made sense. But at the same time, like there's so many reports saying like it didn't make any noise. It was huge. It was a mile wide, And in even in like the recording or in the clip that we showed, it does look like it's super duper wide. So I mean, I don't know what to think. I definitely don't think a stealth bomber is that big. Again, I never seen one in person. But I still just can't give the stealth bomber theory more credibility. Um, I mean, I got to give it some just because other people, have confirmed, hey, if you've seen a stealth bomber at night, it's real easy to, think it's UFO because it just looks so weird, unconventional. I think I would give this the stealth bomber theory 25%. So less than the
Yeah,
UFO, but, you know, still a quarter of the way there.
yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. Like, again, like I was saying, with perspective, like the stealth bomber could appear bigger than it really is. People did report it seeing it like 200 feet above the air. So again, like he was saying, you can't give it too much credibility. Again, we don't know what the U.S. was developing, and it was also when the B-2 stealth bomber was in testing. And who knows if they had other planes in testing that didn't end up making the cut, I guess. So, and it also could have been multiple flying together. But I mean, how synchronized they were, that would be very impressive. So
Hmm.
I'm gonna go 22% on the theory that it was a stealth bomber or other type of aircraft, and that gives us a 23% on the true theory.
Heck yeah.
So theory number three was flares. So we opened up that theory saying that flares genuinely, like I couldn't even hide that I had a little skepticism. And this was again the initial response and what the Air Force came out and said it was. So I mean, there's some validity to just because the Air Force said it, but other people might instantly say, well, the government said it, so you can't trust it.
Hmm.
But yeah, exactly. So I don't know. The way I feel about it is it does kind of appear like flares. Uh, One of my issues with this is again, if we look back at the video, um, I get it. Flares are bright, but it looks like what is creating that light is huge.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, if just looking at the video, and then we've seen the flare footage too. Like,
Hmm.
what is creating those lights? Like, again, it looks big.
Yeah.
Uh, it's hard to, I don't know.
Yeah. And I think the biggest problem with like the flare theory is like, I mean, again, like going back to the clip, like there's the trails of smoke, there's very visible
Yes,
trails of smoke, and you can see like, they don't remain perfectly in the formation that they were ejected in, they're, you
the
know,
wind. Yeah,
yeah, wind, they're affected by wind, and sure, Arizona wasn't in, monsoon season. I don't know what the weather conditions were that night. I don't know how strong the wind there was, if any, but yeah, I just and that and flares, I don't think they would float and stay in the air for 2 hours, or at least long enough for that many people to see them and be like, "Yo, what is that?" You know. I mean, if you've ever been to any form of like fireworks show or something like that, the things that are intended to kind of burn and just kind of be visible
exactly.
against the night sky, they don't last that long.
Yeah, and
Um,
we also got to talk about how they traveled. Uh, Multiple people saw them moving horizontally
yeah,
across the sky.
yeah. I
So
mean,
yeah, that's weird.
yeah, and in that documentary, we keep referencing, the lights were or the lights were originally described as amber colored. Um, I don't know how well that translates to flares. I'm sure you can get flares in different colors for different things, of course, but I mean, who's launching five, six, seven flares up in the sky, all tied together in a perfect V formation? and just kind of letting the wind take them. I mean, I don't know what kind of flares these would be, but
Yeah, and why over Phoenix?
yeah. And why not just why would it take so long for the Air Force to just be like, oh yeah, it was us? I mean, I feel like at some point they would have just be like, yeah, no, this was the flight. We were just doing some exercises involving flares, or
Don't worry. Yeah.
getting some training in on this new aircraft. Um, Sent out some flares to indicate, like in the video. Um, it looks like almost like the pilot kind of did his little mid-air refuel, then drop some flares just to like kind of rather fend off an incoming like missile or something, just kind of be like, yeah, I'm all good, just kind of quick signal, without having to clutter up the radio. The flare theory, this is probably one of the lowest ratings I'm probably ever going to give on this show, for the true theory, but
Ooh.
I think it's honestly like 5%. I am really skeptical about flares. They just don't
Okay.
last that long. They don't move that way. And um, in that documentary as well, one of the eyewitnesses, after seeing it the next day, says she calls Air Force Base, or the Air Force Base here, local to us, Luke Air Force Base, and they were like, nope, we didn't have any planes in the air that night. And I can't imagine, a freaking Delta Airlines, passenger, plane is just like popping flares over Phoenix. I mean, why would that?
Boeing. It had to be Boeing.
Right? They're like, yep, we're coming in. We've got tumbleweeds inbound. I'm gonna go ahead and drop some flares. Just to, yeah. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to be flares. So I'm at
They're
five.
also perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, 5%. They just don't work that way.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go a little bit more. I'm gonna say a 12. I completely agree with all the points stated. Um, the only thing I can think of is they were testing some, and they still had to be pretty big flares. That they, yeah, I guess they were testing them for some reason. I don't know what they would use that for. I don't have a military background, especially not in the Air Force.
Hmm.
I don't know. I just maybe there's a chance. So I'm going to give that a 12, which gives us a true theory of 8%, which I think sounds about right.
Hmm.
So yeah, that'll definitely be one of the lower ones, which is strange because this is like the most believed. I don't know. I guess UFOs in that are the most believed theory. It's kind of split, but
Yeah.
yeah. So tell us about theory number 4.
Weather balloon, like I said, the weather balloons have been at the forefront of, some other suspected UFO crises. Um, Shout out China. No, I'm just kidding. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't think I can give weather balloons that much credibility. I mean, if it were, like middle of June, and we were in like monsoon season, where we get these high winds and dust and stuff like that, um, could a balloon have been thrown way off its course and wound up floating over the city of Phoenix? Sure, but I just don't think it's very likely. I mean, this theory, I'm just gonna jump right into it. I'm gonna give the weather balloon theory a 15%.
So weather balloons can be quite large. Contrary to popular belief, a lot of people think they're just, I don't know, hot air balloon size or smaller, but they can get quite a lot bigger.
It's Party City
Uh,
balloons with like an LED in it.
yeah, that's what I feel like that is what most people believe, no?
I don't know, probably. They're like, well,
Yeah,
no, it's just a balloon.
yeah, at least a semi big balloon, but like nothing crazy, but they can get pretty large, a lot larger than you would think. So I think there is some validity to it, but again, you'd have to go back to that V shape, how they kind of move together, and then most weather balloons don't light up, or any. Actually, I'm not too sure on that. That's one thing we didn't fact check. But yeah, I'm sure there's one or some type that does, uh, or they're testing something. I'm gonna
Mhm.
give it a 6%. Pretty low for me. Uh, and I just slightly believe flares more, mainly because of the light. But yeah, weather balloons are big, so I'm not going to give it a 0 or anything like that. There's still a possibility. The movement and stuff kind of throws me off. Um, but weather balloons, you know what? I'm going to change my 6 because weather balloons, I'm going to go 9, just a little more. Weather balloons can travel kind of in a floaty manner, in a floaty manner, where they can probably start in a place like Henderson, Nevada, and end up in over Phoenix. Some of the stuff that happens, like the flickering, that also brings it back down again. So yeah, I'm going to end with a 9%
Yeah.
divided by 2. That gives us a 12,
Okay, fair enough.
which sounds fair.
Yeah.
So, before closing thoughts, we're now going to compare the highest overall and the lowest overall very quickly. So our highest overall theory ended up being the UFO. Are you surprised by that?
Not at all. I mean, we're both crazy. I mean, look at the podcast we run.
Yeah, I feel like we do add a lot of realism to a lot of conspiracies, though, which is strange that we like 2 episodes in a row at least have UFOs pretty high up there.
Hmm.
But again, it's UFO month.
Yeah, I mean, the plausibility, I mean, of it being some form of like aircraft, whether it's, something man-made or if it's something, extraterrestrial, you know, I don't think we could ever say for sure, until there's a lot more concise, um, footage out there or more, reliable sources. But I mean, that's just kind of where I'm leaning. It's definitely something I don't think I could explain if I had seen it in person.
Yeah, and like yeah, we tried to find an explanation, and so far the one that we believe the most doesn't mean necessarily that that's for certain what we believe. You don't have to be. Not everything is like black and white. Uh, Good chance it was UFO to us. Well, for sure UFO, possibly aliens, alien technology, something unworldly.
Yeah.
Uh, and then our lowest rated theory was that it was flares, which I feel like you already kind of saw coming.
Yeah. I mean, the flare thing just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, you look at, a picture or a video of like an AC-130 or C-130 just, popping flares or something, and they do come out in a very, organized pattern manner, but I mean, what happens 5 seconds later, once they start to be affected by the wind, some will fall sooner than others. Typically don't rise back up, and it's like, hey, we've got these lights moving in this perfect formation, oh, it's just flares. Yeah, no, I mean, it just doesn't make very much sense to me. So,
Yeah, and like we mentioned earlier, that vertical, or not vertical, horizontal movement is just extremely strange for flares. Seeing them in multiple different locations. I mean, why are you dropping that many flares across all of Arizona? Strange. And why are you dropping them over Phoenix? Just strange.
yeah, right. And it's like, what kind of freaking flares are these? They're just what, they just don't burn out, or are
It's
they tied together,
huge.
like
Yeah.
are they,
So
it's just weird. But I definitely think it's still possible, and I give it credit where it's due, but I just don't think it's what it is. Closing thoughts. Um, yeah, I mean, I just it's so hard, to kind of just latch onto something and try to convince myself of one thing or another. I think this, with it being, more modern, this isn't like I mean, this isn't like, you know, the 50s or something where there's some super grainy piece of, footage out there that could have literally been anything else or anyone else. Um, and then I also don't think it's, some form of, man-made, you know, aircraft just due to its alleged size. So it's hard to say.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's a very interesting case and something very prevalent, especially in the Phoenix and Arizona communities. Um, so it was fun to visit Phoenix, see what it's about, and cover something that's important to the people there. So yeah, thank you for joining us in UFO Month 2024. I wish we could have got some more videos out there. We'll try to get some more shorts out there before the month is over. But again, thank you. This was, again, our channel's still growing, but it was a great month for us. From the start of UFO Month, we doubled in size, I believe.
Hmm.
Sorry, my mic was being weird. But
Yeah.
yeah, anything else you want to add?
No, I mean, I feel like we, covered just about everything that there is to cover for now. Um, yeah, I can't really fully get behind the other theories we talked about earlier. As much as I could get behind, like, yeah, this doesn't make sense because it was aliens.
So yeah, thank you for joining us in our special Phoenix or Arizona special, and we will see you again. Um, what the fuck am I talking about? But yeah, UFO month 2025 will be insane. That's all I'll say.
Heck yeah, well,
Uh,
in the meantime, we do have some other stuff in the pipeline. Be on the lookout, for some. Now that we're out of UFO month, remember here on this podcast, we are going to be covering um, all things mysterious, like cold cases, missing persons cases, whatnot, as well as some conspiracy theories outside of UFOs and stuff like that. We do have something pretty fun coming up. We're still working out the logistics of that episode. I won't quite spoil what it is until everything is set in stone to go ahead and move forwards with getting the type of content we want to start creating. But um,
yeah, we want to flatten out the details
yeah,
before we get started with that.
yeah. So that'll be coming soon. But certainly do appreciate each and every one of y'all. Do us a favor, if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and hit the like button if you're watching this on YouTube, or go ahead and follow us on social media at the Frost Files Podcast on just about everything there is to look us up on. Um, we certainly appreciate the support, especially with us kind of being newer to this whole new world of podcast and content creation. But beyond that, that's all I got for everybody. Hope y'all are doing great. Um, Stay out there, stay crazy, and keep that tinfoil hat wrapped up tight.
Never know what
Aliens
could
are
pick you
about.
up.
That's right.
See ya.